Welcome everyone to Our Italian Story. My name is Dan Panzarella, and this site is dedicated to our Sicilian and Italian-American experience. A very wise man named Marcus Garvey, a political activist and author, once said, "A people without knowledge of their past history, their origin and culture is like a tree without roots." Now, I didn't understand what any of that meant as a kid. I was so close to the soil of my Sicilian American heritage, I didn't even know that roots existed. What I did know, however, is that I didn't have a father. He flew the coop when I was still in the belly. I also knew in my bones that I had a loving mother and my Sicilian American grandparents and a cast of colorful characters that made up my Italian family. There was Uncle Gumpy, who was bald and missing several fingers, and I knew I wasn't supposed to stare, but I couldn't help but look and wonder, what happened to those fingers? He would press a quarter into my hand and give me a heap of praise every time I would wash his car. And then there was Uncle Tony. Uncle Tony would flex and move his muscle as a way to make his hula girl tattoo dance. Aunt Teresa had a bowl of chocolates waiting for us every time we would come. There were so many aunts and uncles with names like Peppy, Mamie, Rose, and a gaggle of Anthonys and Dominics that I had no idea who was who. They came and they went and they ate too much and they drank too much and they smoked too much and they talked too much. But you know what? I loved every minute of it. I just wanted to belong. As a kid, my grandparents' home felt like Grand Central Station. And the only constant in the comings and the goings and the blur and the hand gestures was Papa and Grandma. Papa, he was a giant of a man who lived every emotion with honesty. He taught me to make cars beautiful from a young age and spoke to me like a friend without a filter. "Danny, what the hell you doing? Just give it the hump," he'd say whenever he would catch me trying to vacuum or polish to perfection. We'd listen to the crackling voices of Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra on the AM radio before taking a long lunch under the sun. Papa was gruff, a loud talker who often barked, never bit. He was rarely appropriate, often funny, and always there. He was my rock. Now, Grandma was soft. Her hands were creamy, lined with blue veins, and her fingernails were colored in a rose-colored polish. She wore a floor-length velour housecoat that she zipped up right to the top, and her brown curled hair was like a cotton swab that crowned a rather stoic face. Grandma had been through a lot. She put up with Papa for 65 years and still managed to be gentle and kind. She would take me by the hand to pick fresh tomatoes from the garden. She would slip me a $5 bill when Papa wasn't looking, and she would feed me meatballs from the counter before anyone else got a taste. Despite the threats of the ominous slipper, Grandma led with love, and when I was sad and lonely, she would rub my back and sing, "Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be." Now, as trees grow, their branches extend away from the roots. I left my Italian family when I was 20. Sad, angry, and confused, they couldn't understand. To me, however, I didn't know who I was outside of 7 hours at the dinner table, fears of the Malocchi, and working on cars or ripped up tickets at the horse track. And the pain of my father's abandonment and the abuse by my stepfather were just simply too close to stay. I had to leave, and I did. And even though I did, many times I thought about going home, but I could not bear to see what I had left behind, the aging, the sickness, the old age, and eventual death of everyone and everything I loved. Years later, I did return. Papa, the giant of a man, my rock, my hero, was small and frail. His hands shook as he clutched the arms of his chair. He did not want to let go of life. Years later, I returned for my grandma's funeral. The woman I had danced to the summer wind when I was 6, 10, and 19 was gone too. A short time after, alone in an empty apartment, I heard the saddest lines ever that opened me to a well of grief, a light of hope. Robert Loggia, the narrator of the trailer for Pride and Passion, a documentary around the Italian-American experience, said in his very gravelly voice, "My grandparents were Italians. My parents were Italian-Americans. I'm American-Italian. And well, my kids, they're American-Americans." The death of my grandparents broke my heart and marked the end of 7 hours at the dinner table. Waves of company coming and going, picking ripe tomatoes, and threats of that slipper. I cried, and I still cry when I think of them and all that I've lost. And I also smile, because fallen leaves return to the ground, home to the roots. I changed my last name before marrying as a way to honor my mom, papa, grandma, and my Italian family. My wife, daughter, and I have taken cheese, pasta, and cannoli making classes, and each year on Christmas Eve, we make homemade raviolis. And you know what? I know I am doing something right, because recently, as I walked past my daughter's door, I heard a soft little voice. I peeked in and saw my daughter patting her cat and gently singing, "Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera." That's my Italian story. What's your story? What story lies deep within you that's longing to be told, shared, felt, and passed on to the next generation? As Sue Monk Kidd, the author of the book The Secret Lives of Bees, once said, "Stories need to be told or they will die. And when they die, we can't remember who we are or why we are here." Below, you will find a host of ways to engage, to relive, to remember, to belong, and to continue your culture and our voice. Not just for you, but for Sicilian and Italian Americans everywhere. What's your Italian story? I can't wait to hear it.